Hey everybody, welcome back to Career Crash Course. I'm Erica Starke-Knight, and I am so excited to share what you need to know conversations as you consider a career in the media industry. I've been in the business for over 30 years and decided to invite some of my industry friends who are crushing it to stop by for some real talk about what their profession is like. Today's topic, social media marketing and graphic design, with my special guest, Autumn Bruton. Welcome to Career Crash Course.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes. So you have been in the creative space professionally for 10 years, graduated from NYU, and you just jumped right in. So tell us, what was it that you recognized about yourself that made you think, I should consider a career in the creative industry?
Oh, that's hilarious that you asked that. Everything about my entire childhood, I would say. I have been creative since I could even think, talk, speak, walk. I was the type that did a bit of everything. I did performing arts for a while. I did crafting. I did writing. I did anything I could get my hands on to be creative. Fashion design or anything that visually, especially visuals and storytelling have always been a part of me and my identity. So I was telling stories from the time I was 3, 4. So it's always been something that I have to do. It's like breathing for me, is making something out of nothing.
Excellent. So how did that translate when you decided to attend NYU? What courses did you take? What major did you take?
That's a great question. I originally thought I was going to go for engineering at Columbia, and that I wanted to, once again, it was a way to create, but I was like, that math part though, not my favorite. So yeah, that part. So the great thing about NYU, and the reason I chose NYU, is because they had Gallatin School of Individualized Study, which is probably one of the best ideas I've ever heard of. And what that meant was that you weren't beholden to one curriculum and one course of study for the entirety of your time at university. You were able to take courses in any school that you wanted. And that was a unique experience from any of my classmates. And I had friends from every different kind of school, whereas someone who had attended Tisch School of the Arts would primarily have friends in Tisch. And people in business school would primarily have friends there. But I was able to kind of hop from school to school and kind of pick and choose, cherry pick exactly what I was interested in and what I wanted to learn. So that's how I was able to kind of not learn what to think, which even if you go to design school, a lot of people will get pretty much a similar standard education, whereas I was able to create my own. So I was taught how to think rather than what to think. So I can connect the dots in different ways that others necessarily can't.
It sounds like a wonderful experience. So obviously not every school can be like NYU where you can choose, but for the students who are watching now, what types of courses would you recommend? Let's start with graphic design, because you started in your career as a graphic designer, is that right?
Yes, I did. But to tell you the whole truth, it's a lot of time. You have to put time into programs. That's the truth of it. What I would study and put more energy into are things like communication, team building, anything where you can learn psychology or anything that helps you understand your consumer a bit more. I don't know what kind of design courses they have available, but when it comes to the specifics of learning a program, I swear it was learned by doing. So I was just
programs. What do you mean by
sorry?
What types of programs? What do you mean by programs?
The Adobe Suite. So Photoshop, I know I took like one course and I didn't really listen. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say that, I'm sure, but like we're real truths.
It's real talk.
Right? Real talk, right? Real talk Fridays. I think it's super crucial to really forge your own path and really figure out what you can do with graphic design as opposed to how to learn graphic design. I think there are certain principles that I could have benefited from, typography, layout. I mean, once again, all these are things that I kind of came to learn on my own, but what I would have loved to learn in a more structured environment are those things that you really need that structure and that curriculum for. And for me, graphic design, it just kind of came a bit more naturally. I started out in film, so I ended up pivoting because I just knew how to do it.
Right.
So
So now you said the whole Adobe Suite. There's lots of programs for folks who aren't as familiar with Adobe, but they'd like to possibly pursue a career in graphic design. Can you give us some specifics?
yeah, absolutely. A lot of the tough thing about graphic design is the tools have changed. You know, some requirements for different companies would be, you know, they would just have a lot of different programs that they would be using. But the benefit is that after all this time, I can tell you, Adobe hasn't gone anywhere. So I would say Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, that's your trifecta. Well, After Effects. After Effects is a big one for me right now, especially working in social. I'm sorry?
Forfecta, is that a thing?
Four, the Forfecta. The Forfecta, we're making a thing. It's done.
Say those four again, please.
So I would say start with Illustrator. That's the basics. That is the absolute fundamentals. Photoshop, I would say delve into the most. That is the most versatile, and you'll be able to pretty much make anything, including vector illustrations. But Illustrator is a really good starting point because if you can master that, you can master any of them. InDesign is for print primarily and layout. So depending on what your specialty ends up being, that can be really beneficial. So it usually kind of veers off like that after Photoshop. It would be into InDesign and After Effects. I have not really seen the need to master both. Since I started working in social media, I have not opened InDesign. And before I came to work in social media, when I was in-house, I didn't even open After Effects. So I think it's a matter of really kind of figuring out if you want to be in the digital or print space more. But a mastery of all, I'm always going to advocate for that.
Yeah, for sure. If you have all the foundation, it's a matter of opportunity, meeting, preparation, right?
Oh, yes.
Everybody know, and you know it. So tell me about some of your experience in graphic design and the companies that you've worked for in New York.
Well, I will tell you a funny story. The hustle is real. I will say that. I got my first job working for a luxury jewelry company in New York City, international. And when I say luxury, I'm talking about literal diamonds, rubies, emeralds on my desk every single day, day in and day out. Very trustworthy, proven it. So it was
needed. Yes.
Right. Make sure that they can always look to you. Be super dependable. That's 1000%. So what ended up happening was after less than 9 months, I think it was like 9-10 months, my boss ended up leaving, and they not only tried to have me hire my own boss. Don't do that. If they ask you to do that, don't do that, because it's a setup. I mean, I was sitting there in their interview, and the moment it dawned on their faces was classic, because every single one would have the same reaction. They'd be like, so I would be your boss. And I'd be like, yeah, so availability. I would try to move on real quick because it was absurd, but nobody else knew what I did or could, interview anybody because they didn't know what was required. So what ended up happening is they didn't hire anybody, and I took over the department, and I did that for 3 more years after that. So I was at that company for 4 years. So the funny part is that I had that kind of very high pressure job, but my boyfriend, now husband, at the time thought that I worked on doggy couture because that was my side hustle, and I would be working on that all hours and getting that done in addition to my day job. So for the longest time, he thought that's what I did. And I was like, actually, I work in luxury jewelry. How do you not know this?
Please elaborate on the doggy couture.
Okay.
What?
Cane and Couture. I'm sure they're still around. It was a minute ago. But yeah, I did full doggy catalogs. So like doggy, this literal vests and I mean collars and they had fur, the whole nine. It was really great. And it was a great company, Black owned business. And it was great training ground for me because I would be designing on my laptop with my touchpad. That I did entire catalogs
Designing
like
the
that.
spread, like designing what we see in the magazine.
Yeah. Yep, full page spreads. And it was not easy. And my laptop was a lot smaller than the one I have now. So that's another principle is make it work. Tim Gun it. Whatever it is, I just, especially if you learn things a hard way first, everything after that kind of goes a bit easier. But I would recommend very strongly to work agency side first versus in-house. If
And just
you
explain that difference, agency side versus in-house.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is kind of what my experience spans, like from full-time work, like besides my interning. But full-time work was the difference between working in-house. So for a brand, you worked for that company and you did pretty much everything for them. At least in my case, I did. So I worked on, catalogs and web design, photography, retouching, e-com, social, everything, even lookbooks, all that stuff. But then in agency, you work for bigger brands in smaller bites. So what I have done now is I've gotten bigger brands under my belt, but it's really high paced, and you're kind of working on different things all the time. So in-house, it was a lot of work, but it got mundane. And so when I was younger, it would have been amazing to work at a place like Vayner, where it's like boom, 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 new project. Okay, how about this? How about this? Done, done, done. So it's been tougher doing the reverse. So that's what I would reco is if you want to be a creative director or kind of climb the ranks, what they look for is brands, name brands. So I did a ton of great work for smaller brands. And it wasn't until I did a socks catalog for Timberland, literally shot socks, so many socks, I can't even tell you. And it wasn't until I just had the word Timberland on my resume, in my portfolio, then it was like, Autumn, ring, 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 ring. And I'm just like, okay,
Nice.
like,
Tell us about some of the other brands. Timberland was big, the socks. What are some of the brands that you've created? So with Judith Ripka,
Judith Ripka was a jewelry company.
and what did you do in terms of design? Did you do their window? Tell us
That was everything. Yep, I did point of purchase. I did large format printing, so giant posters that they would go to trade shows. And that's for, I would do everything beginning to end. So I did have a photographer for a while who they brought on and was an intern. So I basically had to teach her. We shot out the side of a desk. Ridiculous. Don't ever do that. Don't ever make them or let them, make you do that. Get a studio. You definitely, especially jewelry, is some of the hardest photography ever, hands down. It's a lot of macro photography. That means super, super close up. And that means all the details. Devil's in the details. Another principle. Always pay attention to detail. So I would work on photography with her. And after a while, I would end up shooting it myself. But then I would do the majority lion's share of the retouching. So probably 80% of the retouching for that company for 4 years I did. And that is long hours. Retouching is very long hours. And then from there, I would do layouts, coming up with ideas for ads, and then making iterations across the different platforms. So if it was a digital ad versus a print ad versus a large format ad, it was, and then not to mention e-com, so much e-com, web design, all of that. So all the things, basically.
So you mentioned photography. Would you suggest a photography course or two if someone's interested in going into graphic design?
1,000% yes, except, and this is so funny now because times have changed and we are shooting a lot of content on our phone. So something that I think the youth need to know these days is these skills that you're learning with social media, they're super valid right now. So if you can be on the cutting edge and be great at it, find your passion, pick your passion and go for it, because I promise you there's a market for it. If you're a gamer, there's a market for that. If you love doodling in your notebook, you can be an illustrator. If you like whatever it is that just kind of makes your heart sing, go for that, because I promise you there's somebody who needs that, especially for creatives. So when it comes to photography, it's something that will always be a necessity, always. I would say video though is king. At least in my world right now, video is king. If you can learn to shoot video, edit video, all of that, you will definitely have a job for a long time going forward. Never anything against still, but that's my life. I spent in majority static world. So it was a hard lift for me to learn how to put everything into motion. So if you can go in that realm, that is super in demand, especially on social right now. But if you have an HD, if you have like the latest iPhone, I've been taking a lot of content on my iPhone and people are using it. So.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And you would say that's the case, even though, not just because, I should say, of the pandemic, but that would be the way to go regardless.
I would say the pandemic made it skyrocket. Social skyrocketed. I mean, it was obviously because people weren't driving as much, or they weren't seeing out of home, and out of home is just kind of anything you see while you're driving or at a bus stop, in transit, anything like that, those large posters, people weren't out as much and if they're out, they're on their phone anyway.
Right.
So that's where my founder of my current company, he goes where the eyes are, and he does Super Bowl and social media. Those are his big, winners in advertising.
I love it. So let's talk about that. Your new company, you work for VaynerMedia. You are the associate creative director. What comes with that position?
So it's like I said, I think the in-house experience at a smaller company versus a huge company like Vayner, they have locations in New York, London, Los Angeles, Singapore, they opened up, and they're going to be opening more locations. So big companies like that, McCann, Ogilvy, things like that. There are many creative directors, general creative or group creative directors. You have so many, but then there are smaller teams that it kind of breaks down into teams. So I'm specifically on Diageo, which is for an alcohol brand. Sorry.
You can say that.
Okay.
Age-ish. We're not encouraging anyone to drink here. We're just talking about branding.
Exactly. When you're of age, of course. And we're like not even supposed to talk to y'all. Like we age gate very heavily, especially on social. So it's age gating is important. So that's why we're not on TikTok right now. So we're hoping to break into TikTok. But essentially I work on Diageo. So I'm sure you've heard of Crown Royal, Bailey's, Don Julio, Kettle One, a lot of prominent brands. I've worked on Tanqueray before. So what we do for them is primarily social, but we collab with Above the Line and certain activations as well. So I can't remember what the original question was.
What do you do as an associate creative director? Because before you were creating the layout, you were doing the photography. So you've moved up in the world. Now what are you doing?
Yes. So it took me a while. Huh?
Dot caller?
Girl, I'm trying to every chance I get. Of course, trying to call these shots. So the difference between kind of my climb, I would say, is starting very deep in programs, creating content, creating assets, things like that, designing. So then I was a senior art director when I came on at VaynerMedia. So now as an associate creative director, what I get to do is I work with teams more and I'm allowed to give feedback. So that's really important, is rather than always being heads down working on projects, you can, kind of review others' work. A gigantic note I would have for anybody is if you do not necessarily want to be a leader, and it's not for everyone, and it's nothing against you, your upward trajectory does not automatically include leader, and you can still improve and go. If you love working in design programs, and if you really love graphic design, there is no shame whatsoever. You definitely can rise through the ranks and stay as a designer. Some people love that. And the biggest issue before was that automatically after a certain amount of time, people just rise into leadership positions without necessarily having those skill sets and having that inclination even. So I know people who are just like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather just kind of stay where I am. But that's not going to make you stagnant per se. It's just knowing yourself and knowing what you really love to do. So I would say if you're a leader though, which it turned out that I was actually, I went to leadership camp in 8th grade. So let's tell the whole truth. I went to a week-long camp. It exists for leadership. So it's not something I discovered. I kind of always knew that that would be an objective of mine. So throughout my career, I've had leadership opportunities. And so now working on bigger brands, I can take more of a leadership role.
So what's the most difficult feedback you feel like you've had to give so far? And is it always received well?
Great question. Difficult feedback. I've had difficult situations. I know how to give feedback in so much as you do a compliment sandwich. That's usually the best way to go about it. I do have to say, as a woman and as a Black woman, we have a tendency to mince words a lot, and we have a tendency to put a lot of exclamation points and things like that. What I've done is I've kind of developed more of a relationship where the people I interact with know that it's coming from a good place, and they know it's coming from a place of positive, positive feedback. And it's really just to make the work better and improve. I'm not trying to do your work for you, but these are some suggestions that I think maybe you didn't see, or maybe you would want to think of it this way. And most of the time it's well received. It is tough sometimes when they don't see the same perspective. And sometimes I see their side, listen, hear it out, say, you know what, you're right. Okay, we can leave it as is, or we can workshop this together. That is huge. As a leader, you have to be able to do that. It's not my way or the highway by any means. But at the same time, if I do believe in something, I'm not afraid to put my foot down and be like, no, I think this is the best direction, and let's see how it works that way. So you have to be able to pick and choose your battles.
Nice. And you mentioned being Black and being a woman. How diverse is this creative arts space? Not just necessarily at the company where you are currently, but in your 10 years in this career. Is there a need for more? And would you encourage us?
Not even letting you finish the sentence because I'm
Go
like,
for
yes.
it. Go for it.
Please, come on. We need you guys. Because and I would advise, as I'm really looking for leaders, and yes, find your way in through knowing your stuff, know what you're doing, work your butt off, but we need leaders. We need Black leadership, especially in advertising, because it's supposed to be representative of the United States, which is the world actually, on a global level. We're so diverse, and that representation isn't there. So you're having people who don't represent these communities speaking for these communities. Mm-hmm. And that's how you come up with something. If you ever looked at an ad sideways, like, who did that? Most of the time, not always, because not to say that, an all Black team who does a Black campaign is going to succeed. That's not it at all. I've worked with amazing people of all races who have worked on things that are geared towards Black, brown communities, anything like that, LGBTQ. And if you know the community and if it's from a place of love and appreciation for that community, there's nothing wrong with that. So if if your affinity is for a specific group, that's not to say that you can only speak to things that belong to you. As a woman, if I was into sports, which I'm not, then that would be my lane, and I would know how to speak to a sports cohort. That's not my lane, but it's really just about not just knowing yourself, but knowing what you're interested in and being able to speak to different communities. But we need to be in the room. Yeah. We need more in the room, and not just in the room, but in the C-suite. That's executive level.
That's right. I love it. And I love that you're in the C-suite, getting real close.
Getting there. Ooh, girl.
So,
there's certain layers.
What would you say would be a good way to enter this profession? Like what kind of trade magazines, if I'm interested in, or someone watching this is interested in creative design, graphic design, or social media advertising? And I know that's different, but are there sites they should follow, people they should follow? Who do you follow for inspiration? I mean, I know you're mega creative already, but are there?
Oh no, I have pretty much the majority of the people I follow are uber creative. I mean, they're just really, I always look for inspo. I can give you a few examples. I mean, I watch people who are really good at illustrations and animating and things like that. Motion graphic design is amazing. And I literally would have to look through and give you, but what I would recommend is even more important about who you follow. It's what you save. My superpower has been Pinteresting to death. Pinning, saving, archiving. I've created my own library of inspo. Inspo is life's blood to a designer. You have to, it's how you eat, it's how you feed. Don't be afraid of copying something. I'm not saying don't copy anything. I'm saying don't be afraid, because in the beginning of my career, what I wish somebody had told me is inspo is your friend. Just in the way that when you write a paper, you want references, you're reading other materials, and all of that is the exact same thing when it comes to design. You need to ingest. And what everybody in advertising has always said is it's not one avenue, it's not one lane, it's all of the lanes. You need to read, you need to watch TV. I mean, my, direction that I would love to move in is more film and television. That's a thing. It's a thing. These are major visual storytellers, and it's incredible what they do. But ingest at all times. And I save. So people are like, how do you come up with swipe? How do you come up with mood boards? That's another thing that I do is I work on set and I mood board and concepts a lot more than a standard graphic designer. So I'm able to kind of give that vision and bring it to life. So people have seen.
What's a mood board?
So a mood board is, these are a few of my favorite things. I love mood boards so much, and most people you'll talk to in my profession do, because it's just kind of how you gather together swipe, color palette, textures, gifts, anything that you can collect and gather to create a story and give a mood, and really set a tone and give a feeling. If you can get your mood board to evoke emotion and give somebody else the same vision that you have in your head, that's what I do. Is I literally take it out of my mind and put it on a page. And so that's super crucial to making those, is saving. I save stuff constantly. I'm a digital hoarder. That is my superpower. Other designers have asked me, how do you come up with these? Where do you get this swipe, blah, blah, blah? Because I'm doing it 24/7. Whenever I'm on social, scrolling, save, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Pinterest, whatever it is, I save it at all times so that I have this board. I go in, I browse it, get my inspo, get my swipe, and boom, 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 I can put it together super fast. So that is a hack, I will tell you. And like I said, if you want to list people to follow, like they're amazing people. I just don't have to I don't want to spend too much time on that now. Okay. But I would say it's about how you follow, not necessarily who you follow.
Got it. Good advice. All right. I love that. Let's go. We've got a couple more minutes. Let's do some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
All right. I'm remembering our audience. What are some of the biggest notable brands that you've worked on?
Timberland, Kohl's, Pandora Jewelry. Worked on PetSmart, a couple of things on PetSmart. Ann Taylor, I didn't do creative for them per se, but I worked in their production side. That's how I knew I needed to be in creative, because I was designing Post-it notes to put on things. So I was like, look, I got to get back in creative. I can't do this. And like I said, the Bailey's, like those kind of brands, I did worked on a pitch for Ciroc. So yeah, those would be the big ones so far.
Still working. Celebrities. What celebrities have you met?
Oh.
And worked with?
I'm not going to tell the whole J-Lo story. Oh. Okay, I did not get to work with J-Lo.
And then not say it.
I know. Okay, I did work with Beyonce. I held some cards up. I held her cue cards. But it was great. And Tina Knowles said I was cute. So I was super excited about that. So that was back in the day. But JLo, I did not get to work with, but she was in our offices and she definitely said hi to us. I had an awkward little moment where I tried to like, she was dancing by herself, just minding her business with A-Rod. The whole fam was, they were all there, right? So she was just kind of like by the elevator. She was like on the other side of the doors and I'm by the elevators, just like trying not to like act like I'm looking at her. And she just kind of like does this little bop. She has her big hoops on, Jenny from the block. She's popping her gum. And I was just like, yeah, J-Lo. I like do a little wiggle with her and she just like kind of spins around and keeps going. I was like, yeah, cool.
Solo thing. Not a group dance, not a group dance.
All you got it.
Hilarious. What do you know now that you wish you would have known when you were in college, having been in the industry for 10 years?
How great college is. College is great. Besides classes and that, like, I don't know if you guys love learning as much as I do, but it's so much harder when you have to do it in the workplace. You can learn on the job. There are certain pressures there. Like I know college feels like a ton of pressure, but there's still a liberty to learn. And I don't feel like I was able, I don't think you can appreciate it until you're out of it. But, and I'm sure you know this, I mean, just that kind of having this schedule of learning is great, because otherwise you're trying to fit it in and trying to remind yourself and coach yourself and find your own way. But having that guidance in the beginning of your life is absolutely crucial, and absorb every single ounce of it, because I guarantee you, if it doesn't seem important, you will use it, whether you realize it or not. So be a sponge in any scenario. Watch the people, watch the teachers, see how the teacher interacts, listen to the side conversations that they have. All of it will trigger something.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question.
Yes.
Good advice. What would adult Autumn tell young Autumn if you could do something differently? And that might be very similar to what you just said.
Confidence. Just, you got it. You got it. And people have to say it to me, but it doesn't matter as much if you can't say it to yourself. You really got to believe and know that you got it. And whatever it is, you will figure it out. And wherever you are right now, you will be on the other side of it. But you'll realize that your fears and your anxiety took up so much of your energy, your karma, your aura. Everything was drained by those fears that most of them don't come true. So really don't be reckless. Don't get that twisted, but really just understand and know that you got it. You're stronger than you know, you're smarter than you know, you're more beautiful than you think. All of the things that you're telling yourself in the negative, believe in the opposite. Just believe wholeheartedly.
You are enough.
You're not enough. You're all the things. You're even better. You're everything they didn't know they wanted.
Thank you so much, Autumn, for stopping by Career Crash Course. Thank you to all of you for joining us. And until next time, be well. Take care.
Thank you.